My good people, my good people. Hello, world. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the show that's hot with your boy Rob Scott. This is Rob's 2 cents, baby. What's going on? So glad to be here. So glad to be back. Man, I missed you guys, man. As you guys probably don't know, a little hectic at work. Things are definitely picking up. So apologies. I wasn't able to give you a show last week, give you my Super Bowl predictions. A lot of you probably won't believe me, but I did predict who was going to win the Super Bowl. If I was betting, though, I don't think I would have hit the cover. I think the cover of points was plus 4.5 or 4.5. So I wouldn't have won any money, but I definitely got the right prediction. But we're gonna get into all of that on this upcoming show. As I mentioned, I'm happy to be back with you guys. We saw a great Super Bowl, a great defensive matchup. Some great things going on in the NBA right now. Some petty things going on in the NBA right now. But I am here for it, and I am here for you. Hope you guys have been great. So yeah, let's get right into the thick of things. Sit back, relax, kick your feet up, and get ready for the hottest sports conversation in the nation. This is Rob's 2 cents. Gotta start off talking about the Super Bowl. Great Super Bowl, in my opinion. From start to the halftime show to the finish. Great defensive matchup. We saw two teams slugging it out. Uh, One team clearly had an offensive advantage until they had an injury that happened, I want to say midway, not even midway, close to the end of the second quarter. I think it was 3 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock to be exact. Odell Beckham Jr. went down with the torn ACL. And he was kind of on a roll in that Super Bowl for the Los Angeles Rams. For those that didn't know, if you were hiding under a rock or living under a rock, the Los Angeles Rams went against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Los Angeles Rams being your champions of the NFC, the Cincinnati Bengals. I know, right? Cincinnati, right? Being the champions of the AFC under my boy Joe Cool, but my nickname for Joe Burrow is Smoking Joe, man. That boy got swagger. Um, and yeah, we saw the Los Angeles Rams get crowned your NFL Super Bowl champions of this season. Um, they had to win. And we're gonna get into a little bit of more of that. Get into more of that a little bit later in this segment. But as I mentioned, it was a great defensive game. Neither team really came out. Well, I can't say that because the Los Angeles Rams came out firing. They had a game plan. They knew that the Bengals were going to be double covering, triple covering Cooper Kupp. As you guys know, Cooper Kupp was the best receiver in football, a very underrated receiver who's going to be on everybody's radar come next season. It should have already been on your radar. But Cooper Kupp, man, we know he's the Triple Crown receiver winner. Again, to win that Triple Crown, you have to lead your team in receiving touchdowns, receiving yards, and in catches. He led the NFL in all those categories. Then he became the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He won that award. And now to cap it off, with the Los Angeles Rams getting the victory, Cooper Kupp is your MVP of this Super Bowl. But the Rams came in knowing that they were going to give double coverage and triple coverage to Cooper Kupp. And they had a game plan. They said, let's feed OBJ. Let's feed Odell Beckham Jr. And they did just that because they could not get going with their running game throughout this whole game. Now, even though Odell Beckham only had 2 catches, he had 52 yards and a touchdown. So, whatever inefficiencies they found in the Cincinnati defense, they were exploiting that. Because Odell Beckham Jr. looked like he was having his way, but that's what's going to happen when you have one-on-one coverage with a number 2 receiver who can technically go anywhere and be a number 1 receiver. I do stand corrected. As you guys know, I am a regular on ASAP in the morning. That's premieres on the ASAP Sports Network. You can catch me on Mondays and Tuesdays, but throughout the week, they're on Monday through Fridays from 9 to 11. You can watch them on Facebook. You can watch them on YouTube. You can watch them on that Roku channel. You can watch them on Tiki Live or watch us on Tiki Live. And let me tell you guys something. I got corrected. Yes, even as not all sports analysts have the best takes in the world. And I asked a question of can we really consider Odell Beckham Jr. a number one receiver? And they reminded me, for his first few years with the New York Giants, Odell Beckham Jr. was a monster. And, dealing with ankle injuries, dealing with a broken foot, I believe he had. Of course, that'll slow anybody down. And even when he got to Cleveland for his first year, he had a pretty decent year. And a lot of people, including myself, thought Odell Beckham Jr. may be, I don't want to say washed up, but he couldn't be the receiver that he once was. And he started getting in the rhythm with the Los Angeles Rams, especially when he got traded. I believe he got traded like mid-season towards the end of the season. And for the 5 or 6 games he did play with the Rams, every game he got better. And you can tell he got more and more comfortable. And he was okay being the number 2 receiver, especially after the Los Angeles Rams lost Robert Woods to a torn ACL injury. So Odell Beckham Jr. stepped in to fill that Robert Woods void. And him and Cooper Kupp are 2 completely different receivers. So you brought a whole different dynamic to that receiving core for the Los Angeles Rams. And it showed in the Super Bowl. They had an answer for Cooper Kupp, but they didn't have an answer for Odell Beckham Jr. And unfortunately, as I mentioned in the second quarter of the Super Bowl game with about 3 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock, Odell Beckham Jr. goes down with a torn ACL. So now, there's the dilemma. Where are you going to go with the ball? And as we can see by the box score, the Rams were leading 13-10 going into halftime. And then the Bengals come out in the third quarter and they start firing. You got Joe Burrow, who really didn't have, they were able to get the touchdown with Joe Mixon throwing the pass to T. Higgins at the end of the second quarter, or towards the end of the second quarter. But Joe Burrow really was having an okay game up until the third quarter, and he started going off. He was able to connect with T. Higgins for a touchdown in the third. They were able to kick another field goal. Of course, the Los Angeles Rams kicks a field goal. So now it's 16-20 going into the fourth quarter. And the Los Angeles Rams defense decided to wake up. Let me tell you guys something. Aaron Donald is a monster. Aaron Donald is a beast. A lot of people are saying he's the best defender in football. Now, I was not alive during the Lawrence Taylor, the LT days of when he dominated on the defensive side of the ball for the NFL. But from the videos I watched, from the way I hear players talk about him, he was to be feared on the defensive end of the ball. And from what I've personally watched from Aaron Donald these past years of his career, Aaron Donald he's built different. He's a monster. I mean, teams literally triple team this man or come up with schemes at the line of scrimmage to stop his penetration from him getting to the quarterback. And he still finds a way to break down those coverages and just wreak havoc and make life hard for opposing teams' quarterbacks. Even in this game, Joe Burrow was sacked 7 times. Now, we saw against the Tennessee Titans, he took 9 hits with 9 sacks. Can't imagine how many times he got hit. He got sacked 9 times in the game against Tennessee. And to come into the Super Bowl and then get sacked an additional 7 times just shows you, A, how bad the offensive line is for the Cincinnati Bengals, and B, just how good that Los Angeles Rams team can be. I mean, Aaron Donald 2 sacks, Von Miller 2 sacks, Jalen Ramsey causing havoc, in the secondary. He got beat by Jamar Chase a couple times, but for the most part, Jalen Ramsey was there breaking up plays in the second half. In particular, I remember a touchdown he broke up for T. Higgins. Or Tyler Boyd. It was one of the two. So, Jalen Ramsey proving his worth out there. So now that you got your defense cooking and making life hard for Joe Burrow, who would not score in the fourth quarter, the Cincinnati Bengals would not score in the fourth quarter. Now Matthew Stafford looking for someone to go to. But as I mentioned, the running game non-existent. Cam Akers 13 carries for 21 yards, no touchdowns, and you really couldn't. Cam Akers, miraculously came back from his torn ACL injury that he suffered in July. So for him to be back and participating in the playoffs was a miracle in itself, but you couldn't expect that much from him. So what does Matthew Stafford go do? He says, you know what? I'm going to go to Cooper Kupp. You can double team him. You can triple team him. I got enough faith in him that I know he's going to make the right play. And Cooper Kupp stood up, 8 receptions for 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown catch. Oh, Cooper Kupp is just amazing. He's the utility knife. He's the glue that keeps that Los Angeles Rams offense together. Because when in doubt, throw the cup. And his cup will run it over. Cooper Kupp is a monster. The best, not just slot receiver in football, the best receiver in football, and by far the best route runner in football. Because he's not going to kill you with his athleticism. He's a lot quicker than you think. But he's not a receiver that's going to jump over you and catch the ball. He's going to run a route. He's going to beat you to the spot, and he has glue in his hands because he doesn't drop many passes. Cooper Kupp proved himself this year. And if you don't give him the respect that he deserves, then you obviously don't love the game of football. Cooper Kupp, make sure you put some respect on his name. That's with ECK. Put some respect on it. Also, Matthew Stafford finally winning the big one. This has been a miraculous playoff run for Matthew Stafford. Remember, in his 12 seasons, I believe he's played in the NFL so far, he only been to the playoffs 3 times, and he had not won one playoff game. Now to get traded to the Los Angeles Rams, come in here with high expectations. Because remember, the Los Angeles Rams, if this was poker, all chips were pushed to the middle of the table. The Los Angeles Rams went all in. They got Matthew Stafford. They gave away draft picks. They gave away Jared Goff. They say, you know what, we're gonna give you another weapon. They went and they had Deshaun Jackson for a couple of games. Remember that big game he had against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Things didn't work out with D-Jack, but then you bring in an Odell Beckham Jr. You bring in a Von Miller, who's looking to add to his resume, who had a great Super Bowl, as I mentioned, 2 sacks. Remember that he was the defensive, not just defensive, he was the MVP of the Super Bowl when the Denver Broncos won it, I believe, back in 2016. And even though Von wasn't that Von, that's still a monster on that defensive line. And he proved it, 2 sacks in the Super Bowl again. Now he's a 2-time champion. The Los Angeles Rams went all in, and I said it, and I meant that. If they did not win the Super Bowl, this season was wasted. It was not a successful season. Not after you go all in. Not after you give away your future for now. And the fact that they won now, great gamble by the GM of the Los Angeles Rams, Coach Sean McVay. Finally able to coach his team over the big one. Everybody say he's a player's coach. And, now him and Aaron Donald has been talks that neither one of those guys will be back. But from what I saw from the Super Bowl parade, Sean McVay said, hey, Aaron Donald, let's run it back. And Aaron Donald said, let's run it back. He's becoming real comfortable in L.A. We saw him at the Lakers game last night. Slapping high fives with LeBron. They're the best of friends now. It might be a future Clutch client. You never know. But Aaron Donald is definitely meant for Hollywood. Finally able to see Odell Beckham Jr. win a ring after all the doubters, including myself, doubted if he still had it anymore. He was able to win a ring, and despite his injury, even if that was the last game we seen Odell Beckham Jr. play, he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He gave his team a chance to win, and to see him crying tears of joy, to see him hugging his significant other, hugging his woman, kissing her stomach, getting ready for the birth of their baby. It was just a beautiful thing to see, and I was happy. for the Los Angeles Rams. I always want to call them St. Louis. I'm just so used to it. And I know Joe Burrow, even though it was sad to see him lose, hopefully Cincinnati goes back to the drawing board. You have some great receivers over there in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Joe Mixon is not a bad running back at all. You guys got to get that offensive line together. We're talking about in just 2 games alone against the Tennessee Titans and against the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl, he got sacked 16 times. 16 times. For even the fact that he beat Tennessee after getting sacked 9 times was a miracle in itself. Had he would have beat the Los Angeles Rams, man, Joe would have created it. We would have had to start calling that man Joe Legend. And I don't think Joe Burrow was done yet. I still think he's a great young quarterback. Yes, I use the word great with him because he has proven himself to be great in situations this year, even in this Super Bowl. Able to take the lead in the third quarter, and for the most part, it looked like they were going to be able to at least hold on or get it to overtime. But one team had Cooper Kupp, and that was the difference maker in the end, man. So great Super Bowl, great defensive game. Great way for Matthew Stafford to pull it out in the end, even though he had 2 turnovers. I would technically say he had 1 interception. That was the one he threw in the end zone. He kind of underthrew. I want to say that was Van Jefferson in the end zone. He got that picked off. But the second one that he threw to Ben Skowronek, that wasn't Matthew Stafford's fault. I mean, it literally went through the hands of the receiver. And Cincinnati was able to, capitalize on that. But those were the only 2 turnovers of the game. The fact that Joe Burrow got hit so many times and didn't turn over the ball is a miracle all in itself. So great showing by both teams. As I mentioned, from start to finish, great Super Bowl. The Rock came out. Some of you guys know him as Dwayne Johnson. But to me, as a wrestling fan, I don't care how old that man gets. I don't care if that man never steps foot in another WWE ring. To me, he will always be known as The Rock. Came out, gave a great motivational speech at the beginning of the Super Bowl. Great introductions, man. The crowd was electric. He was electric. The halftime show, man. Oh, my God. What a great halftime show. I'm not ready to say that was the greatest halftime show we've ever seen. You have the nip slip with Janet Jackson, even though, with her and Justin Timberlake, even though the performance was okay, you can't say that didn't make for exciting TV and great conversation the next day. And then also, too, you got Michael Jackson. Now, me, I'm not much of a Prince fan. I'm sorry. Please don't kill me. Of course, I love Purple Rain. I love I Will Die For You. But I'm not really, I love Kiss, but I'm not really a Prince fan, so to speak. But the performance that Michael Jackson put on in the halftime show it probably still goes down to me as one of the greatest halftime performances. I'm just a huge Michael Jackson fan. But this halftime performance was definitely great, especially for hip hop. To see Dr. Dre and Snoop up there doing that thing, man. Both guys have aged well. Dre looks like he could have put on some pads and jumped on the field. that guy hits the gym. And, to see Mary J. Blige, the queen of soul herself, with her thigh highs, Auntie Monet. It was great to see Mary J. up there. She did her thing. Great to see my boy Eminem, who I, in my opinion, definitely a top 5 rapper. If you ask me, my top 5 rappers of all time, Eminem is definitely in that top 5 for me. Been a fan of Eminem since I was a kid because he just brings a different, unique perspective to hip hop, to rap. Everything doesn't have to always be bang, bang, bang. Hey, if you can talk about going on the block and doing this and that, he can talk about grabbing a chainsaw and doing what he got to do. You know what I'm saying? But I've always been a fan of Eminem, and then of course 50 Cent. To see 50 Cent out there, man, not only do I respect 50 as an artist, I respect 50 as a business mogul. I'm a huge fan of Power, a huge fan of the various books of Power that comes on Stars. They might as well just call it 50 Cent's channel and change the name from Stars. Of course, the connection he has with Mary J. The way back when connection he has with Eminem used to be signed to Shady Aftermath. It was just great. My boy Frank, he's a nut. Talking about, 50 came up there looking like $1.25. Hey, but when you're eating good, man. And 50 is definitely eating good, man. And then, of course, the game itself was a great game, man. So, shout out to the NFL for putting on a great Super Bowl. I was highly entertained. Matthew Stafford is definitely, he's finally can be mentioned with those upper echelons of quarterback in the upper echelon class of quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford, the word out was that he couldn't win a big one, and he finally was able to pull it out. I'm not ready to say he's top 10 or top 5 of all time, but right now you do have to put some respect on his name as a top quarterback in the league today. Moving on, we got to get to the NBA. If you guys haven't heard, again, if you've been living under a rock, the NBA trade deadline was this past Thursday, February 10th. And some teams made some big moves. I mean, we seen Kristaps Porzingis get sent to the Wizards. So they finally broken up him and Luka Doncic. We saw a couple of Serge Ibaka getting sent to the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that was a great pickup for them, especially considering the fact Brook Lopez hasn't come back yet. If Serge can keep his back healthy, I believe that's been his problem. You definitely have a great player in Serge, and it takes a lot of pressure off Giannis of having to be the biggest man on the court. We saw some great, Montrezl Harrell gets sent to the Charlotte Hornets, which is going to be a great move for them because they've been needing some interior presence, especially on the offensive side of the ball with offensive rebounding. And we know Trez is considered a monster down there, down low. I like Trez. But the biggest trade of them all will have to be one of these two things. We saw C.J. McCullough get traded, I believe. I forgot. Wait, give me 1 second. But I know he's no longer with the Portland Trailblazers. C.J. McCullough is now a New Orleans Pelican. So they're trying to create their own version of a big three out there. There's rumors that Zion has to have another surgery. So hopefully they can get his body under control, get his weight under control, and you'll have a good young core there with CJ, with Brandon Ingram, with Zion. If you can bring some young players over there to go with that core, and Zion's able to stay healthy, watch out. They did lose Josh Hart, who I love. Josh Hart, he's definitely a soldier. But it was time to break up that team in Portland. I believe Norman Powell, Robert Covington got traded as well. They're trying to bring in some pieces there. But right now, Portland's in the rebuilding stage, and I almost feel bad for Damian Lillard because he's being loyal to a fault. He came out with a statement saying he's going to ride it out with the Portland Trail Blazers. He believes in loyalty, but he's been hurt. So with the Blazers getting Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, they definitely bought some 2 decent guards over there to try to fill the void of not having Dame Dollar. But right now they can kind of chalk up their season as a lost cause because the Portland Trailblazers are not going to be winning anything anytime soon. But the trade that I'm talking the most about will have to be between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, because if you guys haven't heard, we expected, Brooklyn to win a ring. Most people did. I didn't. But most people expected that big three of James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving to win the ring. We know about the debacle Kyrie been going through with his vaccination. He doesn't want to take it. He's only able to play away games now. Is a rumor going out, that they might be lifting that mandate in New York City, or at least working with Adam Silver, who made a good point, who finally came out and said it's not fair to Kyrie, considering the fact that he can't play home games, but an unvaccinated player on an away team could come in and play in Brooklyn, but the player that is belongs to that team because he's not vaccinated, he can't. Just didn't make sense to me. So Kyrie will probably be able to play home games real soon, but him not being all in, for the time being. And we understand, you're going to stand by your beliefs. And I am not going to persecute Kyrie Irving for not wanting to get vaccinated. That's not for me to judge. It's not for me to say. He does his own research. He clearly has more money than I have, has more probably doctor friends than I have. So whatever they told him, I can't sit up here and try to decipher that information and say that Kyrie made a great choice. Kyrie made the best choice for himself. However, it's not a great choice for the team because they couldn't even play with you at all for a minute. Then it turned into away games, and now, you're missing away games too because you're not going to be able to play at every stadium due to your non-vaccination status. Not to mention Kevin Durant has been hurt for half of the season. He's been in and out of the lineup, battling lower leg injuries. James Harden got fed up. So it started to come out that there was a little bit of disillusion within the Brooklyn Nets. He doesn't trust Steve Nash as the head coach. I don't think none of us trust Steve Nash as a head coach. Not a knock to Steve Nash, but I just don't think he has the personality to control those egos on that team. And this family was starting to break up. Rumblings came out. James Harden wanted to get traded, and Brooklyn refused to give up James Harden, and we know about what's been going on in Philly. Doc Rivers throwing Ben Simmons under the bus, Joel Embiid throwing Ben Simmons under the bus. Ben Simmons said, "I'm not going to play for this team this season. He's going to hold out, willing to take the fines, willing to take the ridicule and persecution from the NBA audience of calling him weak-minded, said he had mental issues. It's not my job to discredit whether or not he had those mental issues. It's not for me to say, but it's just ironic that all of a sudden you have mental issues when they're trying to force you to play, force you to stick with your contractual obligations. You signed a contract. You were under contract to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, regardless of what your feelings were. If your feelings were hurt, that has nothing to do with the fact that we paid you, bruh, to play basketball for this organization. You need to suit up and go out there and play. Man up. Ben Simmons said he wasn't going to play. Lost a lot of money, I believe like 30, 40 million. It's a lot of money to lose to just be mad at a team. However, the trade happened. Both teams finally came to an agreement. The 76ers traded Ben Simmons for James Harden. We know about the relationship with James Harden and Daryl Morey, who's currently the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers, or president of operations. He's one of the two. And we know that Daryl Morey wanted to have James Harden this whole time with their history that they had back in Houston. They've always been close. And James Harden came out and said in an interview that the Philadelphia 76ers were honestly his first choice for him to get traded. When he got traded from Houston, it didn't go through, so he chose to go play with KD and Kyrie to try to form that big three, but he never was really happy. He started getting out of shape. All of a sudden, he's skinning out. I don't know if you guys seen the video of him trying to teach Joel Embiid how to do a step back, but James Harden looks a lot slimmer than he did with Brooklyn. Maybe it's the colors. I don't know. But I heard black makes you look slimmer. And he definitely didn't look as slim as he does now that he's with the Philadelphia 76ers. So Philly in this trade, they got James Harden and the aging Paul Millsap. And the Nets got Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks, one in 2022 and then one in 2027. I honestly think the Nets got the better of that situation. I don't know how Joel Embiid and James Harden are going to get along. That's going to be an interesting dynamic to pay attention to, especially because those are two their style of play is too opposite of each other. James Harden is more of an isolation player. He likes to dribble. He likes to get in his bag, so to speak. A lot of step backs, a lot of driving to the rim, trying to get the foul calls. And Joel Embiid is a player you're going to want to feed that 7-foot monster. He's an MVP candidate. He's been going crazy this season, keeping the 76ers afloat even throughout this entire fiasco. You're still able to keep players like Maxey, keep players like Tobias Harris, keep Maurice Thybulle. So, they're going to be competitive. But I just, with their, not even just their style of play, their personalities, it's going to be interesting to see how this team meshes together. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Brooklyn Nets got some hard workers because all of a sudden Ben Simmons is smiling again. He looks like he can't wait. He honestly said he can't wait. He hopes he's available to play the 76ers, I believe, March 17th when they meet up. You kind of saw his eyes lit up when he was asked that question. He said, you right. I hope I'm ready to play. And I believe he should be coming back after the All-Star break. Bringing in a shooter like Seth Curry, to add to, the Kyries, the Kevin Durant's of the world. He's going to get a lot of open jumpers once that team is fully healthy. And bringing in a beast like Andre Drummond. One of the biggest things about the Brooklyn Nets is they had no interior presence. KD was pretty much the biggest guy on their team because him and Claxton are about the same height and built the same. Blake Griffin doesn't have it anymore. He can give you great games in spurts, but he doesn't have it anymore. And LaMarcus Aldridge, as much respect as I have for LA, he's not that same LA. He's never really been known as a defender. He's always been a great pick and pop shooter, but you're only going to be able to get about 15, 16 good minutes out the guy. So you bringing in Andre Drummond, a guy who's not really known for a shot blocker, but just a big body down there who's going to clog up the paint, who's going to give you offensive and defensive rebounds, and can occasionally score. And not a bad passer. I've just a couple of plays I've seen from him with the Brooklyn Nets. They got a nice little young core. And not to mention, you got Cam Thomas over there still. You still got Patty Mills over there. Good day, mate. So you got a recipe to cause a little trouble in the Eastern Conference. Right now, Brooklyn has not been the Brooklyn that we've expected them to be. I mean, if we look at the standings right now, Brooklyn is 8th in the Eastern Conference. So if the playoffs started today, Brooklyn will be in the play-in tournament. So I'm just interested to see how this dynamic is going to work with these new acquisitions for both teams. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on that, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be a topic of conversation in the future on Rob's 2 Cents. But we got to move right along because I'm not going to sit here wasting time talking about a team that's trying to figure it out or teams trying to figure it out. Let's talk about a team who, in my opinion, I believe got it together. You see the emblem on my hat. For those who are listening on Spotify and iTunes, I do have on a Chicago Bulls hat because the Chicago Bulls have been going crazy this season. Right now, 38-21 is their record. They are first in the Eastern Conference. And that's not just a miraculous thing for them to be number one because they've been number one all season. But if you paid attention to the injuries that they've had, excuse me, if you paid attention to what the Bulls have had to do to stay afloat within the NBA, first of all, they were the team that got hit the hardest by COVID when COVID was a thing in the NBA. They got hit the hardest. I mean, they got hit so hard that they were the first team that had to shut down due to COVID. And not to mention injury. We know Alex Caruso's been out. Lonzo's Ball been out. Zach LaVine had to go see a specialist about his left knee. Derrick Jones has been out a couple games. He's just coming back. DeMar DeRozan has missed a couple games due to COVID. He came back. Vucevic has missed games. I mean, I could go Javonte Green. I can go on and on. Of course, Patrick Williams, we lost at the beginning of the season. I can go on and on and on. But the Bulls, despite that, have been able to stay afloat and continue to not only win, but to keep this team in the top, at least the top 3 percentile in the Eastern Conference right now. They're being number one. It's just amazing what this team has been able to do. And they've been led by my boy, DeMar DeChosen. That's my new name I have for him. The Chosen One. DeMar DeRozan has been living up to his nickname of Debo out there on the court. I mean, just dominant play. If we look at his right now the Bulls are on a 5-game winning streak, 7-3 in their last 10 games. And they've been led by this man, DeMar DeRozan, who I am mad has not been getting the coverage from the national media that he deserves for what he's been able to accomplish this year. You know, people need to let go of the past. I know sometimes history can kind of tell you about a person, but let me tell you something. DeMar DeRozan has always been a winner. He was taking his team to the second round of the playoffs. He was taking his team to the Eastern Conference of the playoffs. He just, at that time, you were going against a LeBron James who was at the peak of his powers. LeBron kept a lot of people from going to the NBA Finals. It used to be a point where we'll say, well, we got to see who's going to win out the West because we know LeBron is coming out the East. And it just so happened to be that they traded DeMar for Kawhi. He goes to Toronto. LeBron goes out west, and now all of a sudden he wins a ring after facing injury-riddled Golden State Warriors. You put DeMar in there, I still think the Toronto Raptors win. But it was good for DeMar DeRozan because he was able to go to San Antonio, learn a little bit from Popovich, learn how to have a complete game, and you could clearly see that with the Chicago Bulls because now this guy's rocking and rolling. He has to be in your top MVP candidate. He just has to be. DeMar DeRozan has been going crazy. We're talking about on February 9th against the Charlotte Hornets, the man had 36 points, all 68% from shooting from the field, 75% from the three-point line. On February 11th against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which was also a W, 35 points on 63.6 shooting from the field. On February 12th against the Oklahoma City Thunder, he gave you 38 points on 50% shooting from the field. Against the San Antonio Spurs on February 14th on Valentine's Day, he gave you 40 points, shooting 66.7% from the field, and he got 40 points without taking one 3-point shot. And then against the Sacramento Kings on February 16th, which was last night, it's going to be 2 nights ago for those who watched this in the morning, DeMar DeRozan gave you 38 points, shooting 59.3% from the field and 100% from the three-point line. Yes, it was 1-on-1, but he hit the 1-3 he took, which was in clutch time, which was in money time, which, by the way, DeMar DeRozan leads the NBA in fourth quarter scoring. Last time I checked, he was like at 443 points in the fourth quarter. DeMar DeRozan is the clutch one, the chosen one. And simply put, that boy cold.